Welcome to the Stay Grounded podcast, brought to you by Java Press Coffee Company. My name is Raj Jana, and I'm the Chief Brewing Officer here at Java Press, where we help people make daily happiness a priority using the coffee we love. I interview people from all walks of life to discuss happiness, success, fulfillment, and ways to infuse it all into daily life. I want to dissect different thought processes and turn them into powerful insights that empower you to stay grounded and make daily happiness and fulfillment a reality. So thanks for joining me today. Now, let's get to grinding. Welcome to episode 37 of the Stay Grounded podcast. Hope you're all having a splendid morning, afternoon, evening, or whenever you choose to be tuning in with us today. This episode is special to me because it's the first episode that I had not one, but two guests on at the same time, Mrs. Desiree Mangandog and Mr. Alonto Mangandog. Both Desiree and Alonto are incredible individuals who are both in business together, and they are passionate about using essential oils, aromatherapy, and acupuncture to help people process and move through their emotions. They've been in this business a very long time. Desiree herself is an acupuncturist and an essential oil expert. She's an author, a speaker, an intuitive healer, and thought leader. And Alonto works alongside Desiree in business, growing their own businesses to reach as many people as possible, helping other people unlock the real benefits of aromatherapy and essential oils. And I actually found this episode to be one of the most thought-provoking because when I first met Desiree and Alonto, I was at an event in New York City. And I don't know if anyone listening's been to New York City, but I'm not from the city. And so when I was in the city, I felt very overwhelmed. I was in Midtown, and all the lights and cars and just constant energy made me feel extremely overwhelmed. And I think Desiree noticed that. And when she noticed that, she came up to me and she gave me a little bit of one of the blends that she had created, one of her essential oils. And so I put that blend on my wrists and I just smelled it. And I don't know why, but all of the tension that I had just went away. It was almost as if the smell and the sense of smell unlocked all of that. It was like a reset button. And so I found it incredible. And I wanted to have both Desiree and Alonto come on board and explain the science behind essential oils, why that worked for me, and really how we can use simple tools like these and how we can use our senses to really unlock the subconscious and the power of the subconscious so that we can go forward and create incredible moments for ourselves on a daily basis. So this episode was incredibly fascinating to me and profound, and it made me realize how easy it can be to make healing yourself a priority and why healing yourself can really heal everyone around you. So it was a beautiful episode with two incredible individuals. After this episode, if you're really interested in learning more about what they do, please visit DesireeMangandog.com, and there's tons of information on essential oils and whatnot. And oh my gosh, like I said, you guys are going to love this episode. I sure did. And I hope you guys take a lot of value out of it, just as I did. But before we get started, if you haven't already, subscribe to the Stay Grounded podcast on iTunes. Get involved with us on social media and just let us know what you like, what you don't like. And I hope you guys are enjoying all of this amazing gems and all of this amazing information that our guests are really pouring into these episodes, because it's getting better and better and better, and I'm loving it. So hope you guys enjoy this. Hope you guys take a lot away from it. And without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce Mrs. Desiree and Alonto Mangandog. Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of the Stay Grounded podcast. Oh, this is a really special episode. We have not one, but two amazing people on the show. Desiree and Alonto, how are you guys doing?
So thrilled to be here.
Amazing, as always.
Yeah, this is going to be a lot of fun. We've never done a show with two amazing people on, and one usually makes my head explode. So I hope you guys don't put me in commission or something like that after this.
We do have a tendency to blow people's minds. So especially as a power couple. So
That is exciting. So, let's start with this. Firstly, how did you guys meet?
Dancing. Yes. Well, we met through salsa dancing. I had been dancing for a while, and then Alonto came onto the scene in salsa dancing in San Diego. And apparently he asked me to dance, and I told him no. but then he found his way, and we ended up just meeting on the dance floor and then striking up conversation. But after our first conversation, we actually got married in 2.5 months after our first date.
Wow. That is, that's amazing. I love that. So clearly, true love and it's amazing. I love what you guys are up to too. Tell me about really kind of how you guys got into essential oils, acupuncture, and really the emotional side of using these tools to better just happiness in general.
Yes. I'll go first and I'll have Alonto step in. But for me, I'm an acupuncturist and herbalist, so working with plants has always been part of my jam. And I actually knew nothing about essential oils, zero. It was a whole nother animal. It was another medicine that I had to learn. So I didn't really have much advantage because I worked with Chinese herbs, but a lot of the essential oils we work with, these are plants from around 45 different countries. So it was such a beautiful exploration in seeing like what essential oils can do. And I just played with them. And we have wonderful references that, guide us along and how to use them. But it was more in using my Chinese medical understanding and background and how to put blends together because I was already creating formulas. And then I learned a specific type of acupuncture that focuses on emotional well-being. And the philosophy is that 99% of illnesses are actually begins at the level of the spirit. So that's the level of the mind and the emotions, because it's our emotions, it's energy and motion, right? That is creating the flow and movement of energy or chi within the body. And it's when there is no flow and congestion and stagnation that lends to breakdown in physical function, which then leads to disease. So that's what I love about the oils is that they have this ability, well, plants in general, you can do that with coffee. Like they have this ability to move energy in a very profound way so that we are preventing all this congestion and stagnation from happening, which then leads to disease.
Yeah, that you said something, energy and motion. I really like that. Is that really what emotion is, or is that your interpretation of it?
Oh yeah, that's what emotion is. There's actually a beautiful documentary called E-Motion that goes into that pretty deeply. I highly recommend watching that.
Yeah, and it's something that we actually heard. I don't know if you listened to Tony Robbins at all.
Yeah, big fan.
Because all he talks about is like your state, right? And your state is based on what your emotions are at, or where your emotions are at. And if you look at it, like everything is energy. Like if you look at like the study of quantum physics, that's the entire basis on that. And it's science is starting to catch up with what we've all known when it comes to faith, when it comes to religion, that everything is energy. And now we're just starting to get a grasp of it. And the science is starting to explain certain things that were kind of like awestruck or unexplainable in a sense. Where now we're getting to that. And when you look at it, it's really like it's emotion that moves us, right? When you feel inspired, when you feel like that drive, that passion, right? There's emotion behind that. Because I can tell you something, or I can share with you a story, right? And depending on the level of energy that I have, the level of emotion that I have behind that could either move you or that could like bore you to death, depending on where my state, where my emotions are at. If that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense. And what I love about what both of you just shared, Desiree, you just shared the sensory connection to emotional energy. And then Alonto, you sort of went deeper on the power that emotional energy has to really create a state of being. How do you feel like your senses really sort of play a role in altering or creating emotional states? Because Desiree, you said it really, because you're right. Like when I smell fresh roasted coffee, I feel elated. And I feel the same way. I remember the first time you shared essential oils with me, I felt a sense of calming relief. How do you think that our emotional state can be influenced by our senses, and how can that be utilized on a daily or even like a practical state or a ritual, a sense of ritual?
Yes. So coming from Chinese medicine, every single organ, so this may be new information for some of you, but in Chinese medicine, every single organ has a related emotion to it. So for example, like the liver has a lot to do with anger and frustration. So people who tend to be frustrated often will find many times over toxicity in the liver. So what is something that helps move that liver energy, that liver chi, to alleviate that irritability and frustration and anger? Lemon is like a perfect example. So sometimes people who have that tendency, they really crave either lemon or lime in their water. That's just so really cool. So then and then you've got the spleen, right? The spleen has a lot to do with worry and overthinking things, overanalyzing, overwhelm. So then not only does each organ have an associated emotion, there's also an associated flavor too. So then with spleen, it's usually sweetness. So you'll see people who tend to worry and overthink a lot, they love sweet foods or sweet smelling things like vanilla, right? Yeah. so this is just a little example of how
blown.
Right? It's really cool. I mean, this medicine is over 5,000 years old. And when you start to observe people and their patterns and, their state of beings and what their likes and dislikes are, it's quite fascinating to see all of these connection points and how the Chinese totally figured this out with plant medicine and food medicine and all of that. So it's really amazing how we can use smells, and not just smells too, but also like the plant itself, like when we're consuming it or using it as in a form of essential oils or in the form of a tea, how they completely shift the flow of energy within not just the organ, okay, because we have the organ, but I'm sure some of you have seen channels or meridians on somewhere online or maybe in a book. So for example, like the liver opens up into the eyes. So sometimes people who are frustrated and angry, they tend to have like itchy eyes or red eyes, right? So then you can use those corresponding plants to help move that energy.
I'm trying to process this right now because I'm like going back through my life and looking at just my own emotional states. How does one become more aware of sort of how their bodies are? Because I mean, now I'm looking back in hindsight, it's 2020. I can be like, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But in the moment, it's hard for me to be aware of these things. How does one cultivate a practice of being aware?
I think journaling is actually a really powerful way where you can document and record like what you're going through. It's not something you have to spend an hour on a day, but even maybe at the end of the day for just a few minutes, just jot down like what were your predominant experiences that day? What were the predominant thoughts that were consuming you and the emotions that you were feeling? And you can go down to like, what was I craving? Like I was craving to run, right? So running is actually a wonderful way to move liver chi. I'm just keeping it simple with one organ. But yeah, just what you're craving in terms of flavors and tastes and foods. And there are so many beautiful books out there. There's like Between Heaven and Earth. There's one that's called The Web That Has No Weaver. These are just basic knowledge and theory, like the stuff that I talked about just now on Chinese medicine and how everything correlates.
Yeah, and really, it's to the tone that we're all creatures of habit, right? Like habitual when it comes to our thinking, when it comes to our feeling, and when it comes to our actions. And when you start to look at and study like the whole idea of habit is there's three main ways that you can develop a habit, right? First and foremost is through repetition. Two is through emotional impact. And then three is through your environment. And when it comes to like your sensory factors, like we're also a culture that's very visually driven. So like a lot of the things that we know that's been explored when it comes to science, when it comes to any field of study have been based on the whole visual aspect of our sensory factors, where the thing that's not necessarily explored at this point in time is the power of your smell, the power of aroma. Because when it comes to like where your olfactory bulb is, it's literally right next to your amygdala, your decision center of your brain, where when you smell something, like it creates an almost like vivid memory, vivid emotion right there and then, right? So like take back to a point in your life where maybe you smell like your mom's cooking, right? Or your the first smell walking into like a coffee shop. That smell now is attached to a memory. It's attached to an emotion, and it's instantaneous. Like you don't need to recall it. You don't need to like do like a repetitive notion to it. It's instantaneous. So that's one of the things that you advantages of exploring this path of emotional awareness or the power of aromatherapy is now you're exploring a world that's literally untapped, untouched, but it's valid, it's true.
This is fascinating to me, especially the link between aroma and memories. Because you're right. I mean, like I still remember like some of my earliest memories. If I smell something, like something sweet, I'll remember something from my childhood. How do you guys use aromatherapy to heal pain, or aromatherapy to be faster, or aromatherapy? Like it just seems like since it's tied to a memory and a story, it just it feels like there's so much power. So, well, I mean, I'd love to learn more. I mean, I'm fascinated right now. Please.
It's so exciting. You're going to be so excited. Okay. So what I love about, I'm really fascinated about how people access their potential. You know, everybody's got potential. Everybody is really extraordinary and divine in their own right. But how do we get from, we get an idea of it to actually living it? And that's when we're talking about this great like flow and movement, because if you don't have flow within your body, your mind, and your spirit, then you're not going to allow inspiration to move through. You're not going to allow creativity to move through. So that's why I use these essential oils in unique ways, because that's my favorite way to use it is in personal growth and development. So a lot of us have our own stories. Yes, like Alonto was talking about, we're creatures of habit, and we'll basically tell ourselves the same story. Oh, I'm someone who, is not capable of becoming that. That's only for certain people. Or I'm not smart enough to do this. I don't have the skills and the talents. And so when you have those kinds of belief patterns, and not just the beliefs, but the emotions associated with like the hopelessness and the despair, then there is not going to be a change in circumstance. In order to change your circumstances, you must change the frequencies, which, that's another way of talking about emotions, because every emotion has a different frequency. Every plant has a different frequency. So you can take hopelessness, for example, which is something that a lot of people experience. They feel like they're completely stuck where they're at and there's no way out. And then you can pair it with essential oils or plants that help with increasing hope and possibility. So just a very simple baseline essential oil that I love to use is Melaleuca. It's just tea tree. I always say, if there's one oil that I could have and I'm stranded on an island, what oil would it be? It's Melaleuca. Melaleuca is such a powerful essential oil. It has the ability to like shake you up and rock you and like basically get rid of a thought pattern that you have been obsessively living. And in a way, it like changes those neural connections in your brain. So something simple as like putting Melaleuca on the top of the head or the back of the neck can stop dead in its tracks, like your way of thinking about something if you don't like it, if it's something that's really disempowering. And then I love bringing in, after I do the Melaleuca, one last oil I'll share right now is bergamot. It's a citrus oil. It comes from Italy, and it's one of my favorite oils that brings about a different perspective so that you can see opportunities in front of you, so that your hope and optimism just rises inside of you. Because it's one thing to clear out a thought pattern and an emotion, but then you also have to replace and nourish the opposite. Because if you just clear it out, that's not enough. You have to go in and take out like hopelessness. And then now we have to rewire into the brain this understanding of hope, which then now completes that circle and helps them to change whatever their situation is.
Just a quick question on that. So let's say I'm feeling hopeless and I use tea tree oil to sort of like give me an opportunity to change my path. How much of it is the oil, and then how much actual effort does it take for you to actually switch your emotions? Because how much of it is like an automatic fix plus, because is it just something that opens the door for you, then you start doing the work to become hopeful? Or is it something that just automatically does it because it goes straight to your psychology? I'm trying to, wrap my head around this.
So I can hit on that. So take the experience that you had in New York, right? So like we were chatting, we were talking, and you were like, man, this is like a lot of stuff going on. And you felt a little stressed, so you felt a little overwhelmed in that situation.
Yeah, right.
And then we gave you it was actually called the grounding blend, which is funny. The
best blend.
And you literally felt grounded because the plants and the trees associated with that blend were a bunch of trees, right? So like if you look at a tree, it's very rooted into the ground, right? So like our association with tree smells or anything like that help us as human beings to stay grounded, because that's what we know. So it's these things that are in line with like who we are as human beings and our environment. Remember like how I was saying like the habits are developed through three main ways: repetition, emotional impact, and environment. Is that like instead of you like feeling stress and like going out into the woods, into the forest to stay grounded, we brought the forest to you. If that makes sense.
I see what you're saying. So all you're doing is you're really changing your environment. That's really the key piece that essential oils create for you, or changing your reality, your experience of the environment. Because that's how I felt. I still remember that. I still remember experiencing just almost like a shift in perspective. I still had to take action, but it just it opened up a door for me. So it's really just shifting your reality that aromatherapy really helps with.
Yes. And I wanted to bring in coffee here just to give you an idea, another layer of how plants affect us. So coffee is the flavor. So there's different flavors for different organs. Like I talked about, sweet is associated with the spleen. Sour is good for the liver. Now with coffee beans, it's the bitter flavor. And And then the bitter flavor affects the fire element, which has to do with the heart and the pericardium. Pericardium is the sac that covers the heart. It also affects, it's called triple warmer. I'm not going to dive too much into it, but basically the fire element, the heart, the pericardium, this has a lot to do with joy and sadness. So by smelling coffee and drinking coffee, we are bringing a lot more joy into our lives. And then also, which affects, our life plans, and then our relationships. The pericardium protects the heart. It's that sac that covers the heart. So it helps us to make even decisions on like who we interact with and who we allow into our lives and who we may, not allow into our space. So there's so many profound benefits just from the bitter flavor affecting the heart.
Let me ask you this. So now we're going into a sense of taste. Because when I smell coffee, I don't smell bitterness. So can you expand on that?
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, that is interesting. It doesn't smell bitter, but it's mostly because of the way it's roasted and everything like that. But if you taste it, though, it is for sure a bitter taste. Yeah, that's really, and then also then people add other agents to it, like, for example, flavoring. Right. So then that brings in another element too. Like if you're adding hazelnut or like vanilla, things like that.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think your question is like how taste goes into like an aspect of emotion. So like as human beings, we experience the outside world based on our sensory factors, right? Your taste, smell, touch, sight or visual, and then auditory. So when it comes to like how you experience that, like there's certain people that are like visual learners. There's certain people that have a tendency when it comes to like auditory. And then there's certain people that need to experience the thing, like either through touch, smell, or taste, to really hone that in, to really affect like the habitual aspect or making that like stay put, right? So the more sensory factors that you can attach to the experience, the more vivid it becomes.
Got it.
But in a sense, smell is probably one of the strongest ways to like ground that in.
Absolutely.
When it comes to the experience, right?
Yeah,
so
this makes a lot of sense. So tell me this. So give me an example or a story, if you would, of how aromatherapy and just sensory awareness has changed your own life, whether it's helped you overcome grief or it's helped you get over something unfortunate. Like how have these principles guided you, if you would?
So I'm going to share something personal. So when I was 23, I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. So, and I had my first manic episode. I'm 35 now, so I've dealt with it a while, but that's one of the reasons why I dove into essential oils and aromatherapy in the way that I did, because I needed a tool. And I experienced a lot of shame and, not being good enough, feeling worthless, overthinking. And then on top of all this, when someone has a condition like that and they're labeled as like schizophrenic or, depression, severe anxiety, bipolar, all of that, many times these individuals are actually very creative and they have a lot of gifts. They have a lot of intuition and they are empaths too. An empath is a person who has the ability to really feel for another person. If you have a friend or a family member in pain, like it feels like you're experiencing it the same. So as someone who is that sensitive and in tune, it becomes very difficult to live in this world with people judging and, all the noise. So I'm sure a lot of people can relate with this, that our world today is extremely noisy and, we see so much information coming in compared to 20 years ago. And that's very overwhelming, and it overloads our spirit. So you were asking, like, what was one profound way the essential oils and aromatherapy has helped me, is it's helped me to clear out the noise. And what's so important is our ability to listen to our own voice, because we have input and plenty of, criticism and plenty of opinions thrown in our direction, every day. And I love using aromatherapy to filter that out. And that's when I experience this complete freedom, when I clear out the noise of other people and media and society or whatever, and just taking what I want. Like, I love your content, Raj, like just taking what I want, but be able to easily sift through it so that now I am just hearing myself and following my truth and listening to my intuition. And like, for example, like I just talked about tea tree, the Melaleuca, that helps so much with that. I definitely use a lot of oils. We have hundreds of oils, but I just want to give a simple tool. Something like that can easily clear out so much noise so you can have some sanity.
And really on the same note, when it comes to the whole like overwhelm with information, and I love, like, it's not my term, but I've heard it spoken in so many different avenues and arenas and mentors I've looked to, that we're in a world where people are experiencing infobesity, right?
I like that.
So much information that we're literally like obese in the information that's out there. And with the things that I've been doing with the oils through like my wife's recommendation and really moving through these emotions is amidst the noise, I found the music that resonated with me, that like really through the noise, you could hear the rhythm, you could hear the music that's playing, that you're supposed to listen to, that I was supposed to dance to, right?
Let me ask, I have a clarifying question for me. What's the difference between noise and a negative emotion?
So in a sense, like the negative emotion, so I kind of have a different take on this, because we have a philosophy that all emotions are good, right? So like negative, positive, whatever. It's being able to move through those emotions. That's the key. It's to develop that rhythm to go from the negative to the positive, because the negative gives you the positive, because you can't know like light, for example, if you don't have darkness. Like you can't know joy if you've never experienced sadness. So in the noise, like once you're aware that there's this thing that really you resonate with, and it's all about like developing this awareness. Once you know that, okay, what I've been living has been in this like aspect of noise, this aspect of like overwhelm, but I know there's something that exists where I can experience the other side of it, when I can experience like fulfillment and joy and peace, and like living a life of passion instead of living a life of mediocrity, boredom.
Awesome. And that's very important. Like the Alonto was saying, all emotions are beautiful. It becomes problematic when we get stuck in them. So for example, you may see somebody who lost a loved one 25 years ago, and they're still operating like they passed away today. And that's someone who has been stuck in that grief. And that leads to, now lungs have to do with grief and loss, which then can lead to a lot of respiratory issues. So it's about gracefully moving through them. And that's another way we use aromatherapy, is to help us process and deep dive into these emotions so that we can fully experience them and release them out of our system. And then the other question about the noise, like, everything out there is beautiful. Every human being out there is beautiful in what they create. Now, there are definitely things that are the best things for us at the current time. And it's about discernment, right? And it's about knowing like what books to read at the moment, what relationships that you foster, what friendships do you foster? Because there's even seasons with friendships, and what activities that you do. So it's about discernment and sifting through all of that information. It's just, I think, like, I love social media and I love technology. It is such a powerful tool, but I also think we need to be taught how to use it well, because it can have some destructive like ramifications too. But that's what I teach people, is how to like look through Facebook, for example, or Instagram, and just pick out what's really important to you, rather than like, oh my gosh, I should do this, I should go there, I should do that, and then they're saying yes to too many things, when there are certain things they need to say yes to and certain things they need to say no to, and having that skill in decision making and discernment.
I love that. When it comes to emotional state and aromatherapy and just knowing what you need, how have your emotions evolved over time? And do you think that what you needed 10 years ago is the same thing you need now? And how does that relationship with your emotions evolve as you learn more about them?
When it comes to like the emotions that we experience now, it's pretty much all kind of similar. But the thing that's been developed through that time frame of ever since we started using essential oils is the reaction time between the two.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
So the moving through the grief, the sadness, the overwhelm into experiencing the other side of it has been like what through the awareness, right? It's like, oh, I'm experiencing this right now. How can I move through that? And at first using like the oils like pretty often, and then eventually developing the skill, developing the muscle, right, to now not needing as much as we've gone through that process. And again, at any level, like as you progress, as you grow, there's really no like, oh, I've reached the thing, I've reached enlightenment, or I've reached like the path, I'm done. It's always like a work in progress. So we're lifelong students. We're lifelong in this like journey of emotional development, and it's just improving our reaction time, improving our awareness of the situation to now move through it gracefully instead of reacting like we would normally do in a situation or certain situations.
That's so perfect. That's exactly what I would say. And just to piggyback on that is the things like 10 years ago, there simple things would take me down a just rabbit hole, and I would hide and not do anything, and it would just crush me. And when I think about the amount of responsibility that I have today and how I'm handling it better and with grace, and that it's not crippling, that I can make decisions faster and make better decisions and discover more of who I am and what I'm capable of. That's what aromatherapy has done for me. Is I'm learning so much about myself, and rather than the story that puts me in the corner. And now I'm this, and I grew up very shy girl, and listen to the rules, listen to authority. And then I've almost come the total opposite. Like I'm like rebellious. I'm pushing buttons out of status quo. And
Desiree the badass.
Yeah, it's so, and I love this quote by Brendan Burchard is like, if people don't think that you're crazy, then you are not yet experiencing the outer limits of your potential. And I just, that blew my mind when I heard that. So if I am not getting criticism, if I'm not getting I'm not so-called offending people, then what am I doing? I feel like I'd be doing nothing. It doesn't mean you have to be this famous person, all that. It's just even within your circles. Do you challenge yourself? Do you challenge your family or your friends in a good way, in a positive way that inspire them and empower them? So yeah, that reaction time, rather than me like, oh, this person said this to me and I can't believe they said that and just hurt my feelings. And here's the other cool part I've learned is not blaming others. As I use the oils, not blaming others for how I feel, but rather take ownership of that and understanding how people respond to you. That's their worldview, and that's how they're processing life and their emotions. And we just constantly project on each other. So if someone says like, you were this and this and that, and I'm like, okay, well, that isn't my intention. My intention is always to love and give and serve, but that's how they took it, and that's okay. And then I could get all bent out of shape about it, right? And so rather than getting all bent out of shape, I just love the emotional maturity that has developed, and now I can handle bigger problems and bigger responsibilities and give and serve in a greater way.
Let me ask you this. I love first of all, both of you, brilliant. You guys are like just amazing individuals that I'm very grateful to be asking these questions to. I have a question. So when it comes to emotional maturity and awareness, how does that tie back to happiness and fulfillment? And how does that change over time? As you does it help you shape your definition of fulfillment? Does it create a space to be happy? What's the link between it all?
So when it comes to like that journey of self-awareness and the journey to develop like that reaction time, right? It's all this like hero's journey. Like, I don't know if you've ever read Joseph Campbell, is in this journey of life, it's all about like growth and it's all about contribution, right? Like Gandhi said, like you find yourself by losing your ego and like in the service of others. So the link between the fulfillment and between the joy that you experience is you experience the joy in the journey, and you experience the fulfillment when you contribute what you've found as an elixir to help your people, to help your circle, to help your friends, to help your family, because that's what our entire human being is all about. It's all about community. It's all about togetherness. And if you can go into it with a sense of something to contribute, like that's when you actually have the fulfillment, like where it just does something to your soul, and it's scientific. It's called oxytocin, right? And that's one of the chemicals that are released when you serve others. So like initially you go through this journey on your own, like for yourself. But after that, after you've fulfilled, after you've developed like kind of like a sense of who you are, and now you teach people and you guide people to discover that within themselves, like that's what life is about.
And I'd love to add, I'm going to bring like a spiritual component to this too, because for me, emotional maturity is understanding that, yes, we are completely one and connected, but that we don't have any inherent lack. Like, none of us is lacking love. None of us is lacking support. Now, it may look like it, when you're watching someone's life, that there's lack, but also taking ownership and responsibility of how we are, how our spirits are expressing in this life. So when someone grows up believing they're not good enough and nobody loves them, then what happens? Then of course they're going to create those types of relationships where people don't care about them. But then when you change that kind of frequency out of your system and really understand that we have infinite divine love coming towards us all the time, we're the ones that are blocking it out, whether we learned from our family, from society, or whatever. But once you open your heart to receive it, then there is just so much abundance available. And to me, that is emotional maturity, is operating from a place where you know that you have more than enough resources, more than enough love, more than enough talent, more than enough of anything to fully live out your life the way you're destined to. When we get that in ourselves, then it's complete maturity, versus someone is like, oh, I'm a victim all the time, and this stuff always happens to me. And, it's the stories that we tell ourselves. So, and here's the other part. All of this is subconscious. Like 95% of how we operate, right, is subconscious. And that's why it's so hard to change, because you've got 5% that's the conscious mind that wants a different outcome. But then you're fighting against that 95% that's just programmed inside of you, or generational patterns and things like that. And that's why you can use tools like even food, like yoga or Pilates or aromatherapy or whatever, path that you're meant to, whatever tools you're meant to use to support you. You can use these tools to affect the subconscious, the 95%, because that's where change is going to happen. You have to affect the subconscious mind.
Oh my God, that was so, both of you, God damn it, both of you. You guys are on fire. What I love most about what you just said, both of you, is this idea that once you make healing yourself the priority, you inadvertently begin to heal everyone around you. And you inadvertently almost share your light in a way that defines fulfillment, happiness, because that's the only way you can be once you define what that means for yourself. So really the most important thing we can do as individuals is really do the work to heal and open up ourselves to experience emotions in every aspect, so that we can connect and share and give and love and really be a part of life from a state of abundance versus one of scarcity.
Yes. Oh my gosh, you're giving me goosebumps, Ron. You are brilliant.
Both of you. Are you kidding me? I'm crushing over here on y'all. So don't even get me started. This is, really, it's amazing. And I love both of you, and I love what you guys represent because it's so powerful.
What's so cool? I just want to say one more thing, Raj. This is so cool because we work with thousands of people and we teach workshops and everything. And in our workshops we have people apply 30 essential oils throughout a course of 7 hours, and it's not talk theory; it's application. We're having the breakthroughs on the spot, and this bypasses someone's stubbornness. So for example, one section in our workshop, we talk about forgiveness. How many times are people yeah, it would be good to forgive them, but every time they think about that person, their whole body just goes, oh, I just can't stand them. I don't want to forgive them, right? And that's the cool thing about using oils the way we do, is that we bypass that stubbornness and we just put it on the body or inhale or whatever we need to do. And all of a sudden, after doing the protocol, they think about that person again, and they're not as reactive. They're softer towards that person. That is powerful. And that's what I love, that these oils will work beyond our stubbornness.
I am massively curious about how I can have more of this in my life. Guys, how do I learn more about oils? How do I get involved with the work you guys are doing? Please fill me in, because I think the way that both of you use aromatherapy to really heal, nurture, and open up different emotional states is brilliant. And I'd love to learn more. How do I get involved?
So the first and foremost, I guess there's different levels of like kind of being part of our community, and at the core of it is like the essential oils, right? So we do, and we share with people like how to use the oils, different ways when it comes to emotions, and then there's an aspect of almost becoming like business partners in a sense, where we spread this amazing message to the masses.
Kind of like a network marketing model.
Exactly. So the aspect of like we have our reach, right? We have our sphere of influence. There's people that are gonna like listen to us. They're gonna be influenced by us. But this message is so profound, so amazing, and has changed like countless of lives that we want like the whole world to experience it. Like we want to partner with people like you, Raj, you know, like that have messages that synergistically come together and create like a win-win situation with regards to that. And then all the other things that we offer on top of that, like when it comes to personal development, when it comes to all these things that we're now enjoying and began this life journey with the power of awareness and emotional maturity. It's another level of the work that we do that people can participate in.
So where to get started is go to my website. It's just DesireeMangandog.com. That's my name. Do you want me to spell it out, or is there going to be easy?
I'll go ahead and I'll spell it out. Yeah, don't worry about that.
Okay. Yeah, I know. I'm sorry, guys. It's my husband's fault. His last name's Mangandog.
Blame the man. Throw him under the bus, why don't you, Desiree?
Yeah, thanks, babe.
And then on the website, there's a place where you can connect with me. So we can have a phone conversation and get you going with essential oils. There are different ways to, like, they have in different packages or individual. We can customize to your needs. And then we want to throw in my book. If you end up getting essential oils, my book is called I Am Fabulous. And so there are actually 45 recipes in there, blends for emotional well-being. Couple of examples are like bye-bye baggage, where we get rid of emotional baggage. Still my mind, if your mind just races and just can't stop. Mend the heart, for people who've been experiencing betrayal, disappointment, heartache, even a breakup. So it's very it's touching on so many different emotions and, you know, clarity and momentum. I even have a more money blend in there if there are people who are listening who need more money. So it's a wide variety of blends that will support you and will definitely give you that as well.
I love that. Well, that's incredibly very nice. Thank you for kind of going down that route. And I'm like kind of just sitting here, just soaking all of this in, because I'm just filled with so much gratitude right now for both of you, for just opening up your perspectives and really challenging the way that I personally view my emotions and the responsibility I personally have to understand them better, because they are they are a gateway to just more people. And so I want to thank you guys for that, both just for being amazing and just sharing that with me. I have one final question for you both that I love to ask all of our amazing guests. And that is, in the midst of everything you guys have gone through, all the growth you've experienced, and where you are today, how do you stay grounded on a daily basis?
So it's all about like the rituals, right? It's all about the the things that you do to start your day, right? Because in a sense, like it could easily like get to that point where it does become overwhelming. It does become like this, like all these things coming at you. And for me, it's really when I go through like those emotions, right? I find ways that, like I told you at the very beginning, I just went to a dance convention, right? And dancing for me is an outlet. It's a way for me to like clear like emotions. So it's not just essential oils; it's all these things that I take part in. And essential oils is definitely like a big part of that. So like smelling something like the grounding blend, like I gave you every single morning after I wake up, helps me to start my day in that way of being grounded, of being in a state of everything is going for me, right? But when it becomes overwhelming, I find like hobbies, I find certain paths that allow me to feel grounded. And I feel grounded in experiencing like my creativity, my amazing community when it comes to the dance community and things like that. So
Awesome. For me, some of my non-negotiables, I definitely use essential oils, but meditation has for about 15 minutes in the mornings is very important. And then using the oils just enhances my experience so that my connection with the divine it's magnified, it's intense. And then I love writing. Writing is definitely non-negotiable. I write to help process like what I'm going through. I literally have 5 different journals in my backpack right now that I carry with me. And it's a variety of writing just stream of consciousness, free flow. But then it's my creative work. So I come up with recipes and blends too. So I love to have a journal with me all the time. And then last thing, as far as something with food, because you're talking coffee and stuff. For me, I love almond milk and matcha tea, and I make my own homemade almond milk, and I absolutely love the process. It tastes so much better than getting it out of a box or a container, and it's very easy to make. And I love flavoring it with cardamom and vanilla and cinnamon, and then getting a very high quality matcha powder and mixing that with my almond milk, and that just puts me in a beautiful state.
I love it. I love you guys are like so awesome, like oozing with awesomeness right now. Try to hold it back next time. Like you guys are both just like such beams of light. I'm beyond grateful and just excited, and I know that everyone listening is too. And so guys, I just wanted to, that's a wrap for this week's episode of the Stay Grounded podcast. I hope you guys learned a lot from Desiree and Alonto. I know I did. And I can't wait to implement a lot of these learnings into my own life. And we'll make all these resources available to you. But guys, from me and I'm your friend Raj. These are your friends Desiree and Alonto. And from us, stay grounded. Until next time.
Love you guys.
Love you guys. Bye.
Thanks for joining us today on this episode of the Stay Grounded podcast brought to you by Java Press Coffee Company. My name is Raj, and I hope you found this interview helpful as you create your own ways to make daily happiness a priority. If you're interested in learning more about how your morning coffee can turn into a consistent source of joy in your life, visit www.javapress.com to learn how our products can help you do that, and use the coupon code PODCAST for 10% off your purchase. Again, thanks so much for joining us. Stay grounded.